You're listening to the Deep Purple Podcast, a fan podcast about one of the most legendary bands of all time, Deep Purple. We take a look at the music, history, and people behind the band Deep Purple and beyond. Welcome to the Deep Purple Podcast, the first and only podcast devoted to one of the greatest bands in rock history, Deep Purple. Today's episode is episode number 173, Whitesnake, Saints and Sinners. And coming to you from the sinful suburbs of Chicago, I'm your host, Nathan Beaudry.
And coming to you from the suburbs of Providence, I'm your co-host, John, trying to burn the sun Matola.
Sounds like you don't have to try from the temperatures over there, huh?
Throw a little elf in there to tell you how freaking hot it is here today.
Do you feel like that picture of Ronnie on the cover with this burning up in the sun?
Except holding like a mic stand like that, I'm like leaning back with my hands up, trying to. Yeah, the sun is trying to burn me. It's like we were just talking before.
Burn the Matola.
Yeah, trying to burn the Matola. Yeah, it's like 11 o'clock in the morning here. We're doing the now not so rare daytime recording because the last 3 episodes have been during the day, but it's already like 96 degrees and like 100% humidity
sessions.
Yeah, I know. It's like we're getting in as much as we can while Nate is quote unquote sick.
Well, yeah, you know what? And that's what I think every day. I'm like, man, I feel fine. And then like 2 o'clock hits and I'm like, oh my God, if I don't lie down right now, I'm going to like pass out. And I take like an hour, 2-hour nap. And then I wake up and I'm fine. And then at bedtime, I'm like, I'm not going to be able to sleep because of that nap. And I'm out and I sleep like a rock all night. And then like, I cannot get up in the morning. Like it takes me like an hour to get out of bed. And then I'm like, I'm fine for a few hours.
See, that's not even the worst part of COVID or any other sickness, or like if you're just like have regular exhaustion from, having a long day or whatever, is just like that false sense of security you get when you feel better and you're like, yeah, I'm ready to take on the world. Nope.
Yeah. I'm ready to take on the world by like sitting in a chair for a few hours. And then I'm like, oh, that really took a lot out of me. I need a nap. Like, and I'm trying to think of like, man, I could like power through work if I wasn't contagious, but I think at the end of the day, I'd be in bed by 6. I'd come home, I'd like eat something and then I would just pass out immediately. I'd be so tired.
Yeah.
But we'll see how that goes in a few days. But hey, if you want to help support the Deep Purple Podcast, you can do so a number of ways. One is by leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Haven't got one of those in a while, and the flexitone here is feeling a little sad. If a flexitone could frown, it would be frowning right now because we haven't gotten a new review in a little while. So
if it could make a noise now, it would go.
It would be. But yeah, if you're looking for if you've been thinking about it, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna write a review, write the review, right? Give us your feedback. We've got a lot of reviews in there. I think at a certain point you kind of reach a saturation point with the reviews until new people discover the show. But if you haven't done it yet, please do. We'd love to read it on the show. You can also become a patron on Patreon or on PayPal for as little as $1 a month. You can support the show. All the money goes back into the show. We buy albums, we buy equipment, we buy tickets to go see Whitesnake in September. So make sure to support the show. If you get value back from the show, give us some value back and I'll put it right back into the show. Sadly, we're not making a job quitting money yet. But 6,000 or 7,000 more patrons and we'll be in good. We'll be giving you 5 episodes a week.
Believe me, Nate and I were talking about work before we started recording, and we would definitely quit our jobs if we couldn't do this.
Yeah,
we would definitely gladly do this,
but we would need a few more patrons. A few
more to keep us in nice things.
Hey, we never thought we'd have this many, so thank you to all of our wonderful patrons.
True.
You can also contribute on Cash App at $DPPOD. If you want to send us a one-time donation, or you can do it monthly or whatever floats your boat. And speaking of our wonderful patrons, we'd like to thank our executive level patrons coming in at the $25 Uncommon Man tier. We have Ovis Nakfi. At the $15 What's Going On Here tier, we have Richard Fusey. At the £10 tier, Dr. Jill Brees. At the Turn It Up to $11 tier, we have Clay Wambacher, Frank Thielgard Mortensen, Alan Ain't Too Proud to Beg, and Mikkel Steen. And at the $10 someone came tier, we have Ryan M, Jeff Bryce, Victor Campos, Better Call Saul Evans, and Kev Robertson, his wonderful children, Matthew, Gareth, and Sarah. Thank you so much to all of you for your generous support of the Deep Purple podcast. Hey, it's been a while, like a really long time, but I did get sent a sponsor this week. So we do have a sponsor that we would like to thank, who's, apart from our patron money, we get amazing sponsorship deals sometimes, and this one comes to us. So let's take a listen to this ad from our sponsor. Here we go.
This box for you, and there's no one else who does it like you do. So here's to you. It isn't only what you say, it's what you do. St. Louis, Missouri.
Here you go.
The hell was that?
It
Was that
sounded-
actually Ronnie?
It was actually Ronnie.
Was it?
Yeah, I didn't think so at first, but I tried to do some research on it, and by all accounts, it was actually Ronnie doing that.
Because it sounded like somebody doing a halfway decent impersonation of Ronnie.
That's what I thought at first, but then the more I listened to it, I'm like, I think that is him. And just from a cursory search to look it up, it seems like it is actually Ronnie.
And I have to say that was a pretty rocking guitar solo for a Budweiser ad. Like they didn't need to put that in, but it was like
full guitar. It was like a full guitar solo.
I'm just like, all right. Well, the thing that made me think it wasn't Ronnie was it sounded like a really good not amateur, but like non-professional musician, like kind of plugging in their rig and doing their best like Vivian Campbell impersonation, and it's just like, all right, this is cool, but you can definitely tell it was like not I don't know, maybe who knows, maybe it was him. How old was that?
That's the thing. I don't know. Like it could have been according to this, it says 19. Well, I'm seeing a lot of, I'm seeing 1983, 1987, 1995, and 1986. So who knows? Apparently nobody seems to know.
And I mean,
this is from.
And I mean, Ronnie was pretty much sounded like almost the same up until the end. So it's
Yeah,
like,
exactly. So it would be hard to tell from him. But
from like 83 to like, let's say like 2003, it could have been, it could have been him. Jeez. Well, I'll tell you that would have been a good ad to run when we had my dad on, because he loves his Bud Light.
There you go. It's Buds for Pops. So yeah, as mentioned earlier, we'll be in Chicago seeing Whitesnake September 1st. So if you are going to be in the area and at the show, let us know so we can hopefully meet up before the show, or whatever it is. They're playing with Scorpions. They're opening for Scorpions. So looking forward to that show.
Do you know who else is on the bill for that one? Because I remember it was very like, it seemed very confusing.
I think it's just the two of them.
Just the two?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. We'll have to see what happens. But yeah, so there's one more thing we kind of wanted to do, which is we haven't done this in a little while, but we do have a new entrance, or new somebody new to put into the Hall of Fame. So I'm gonna cue up the Hall of Fame music. So this is someone this is the perfect episode to recognize them. Someone who has supported us from day one, made a very early Twitter acquaintance of them, and it is none other, perfect for the Whitesnake episode, Jorg Planer, who has tirelessly supported the show, sent us information, and this episode is no different. Corrected any errors we've made, let us help support us, and just done so much for the show. So, while we appreciate all of our patrons, we want to put some of those Hall of Fame listeners into the queue as well, because they make the show more interesting, they make the show better, they make the show more fun, and it's just great knowing them and communicating with them over the years. So for well over 3 years, Jorg has been supporting us with anything David Coverdale related, and plenty of stuff not Coverdale related. He claims that he's only a David Coverdale archivist, but then he whips out information that has nothing to do with David Coverdale at the drop of a hat. So Jorg, thank you so much. We appreciate your continued support, and we will be using some of your information for this episode today, which is really exciting. So we got two amazing people in the Hall of Fame now. We'll have to have a section on the website, a little about bio or something about our Hall of Fame members.
Now look at that. Rich has somebody to keep him company now.
Yeah, he's been sitting in that big Hall of Fame hall drinking Magners, just waiting for somebody else to come in. Now he's got a
Now he's got a drinking buddy.
Drinking buddy. I don't know if Jorg would drink Magners. I think he'd be more of a Bavarian beer sort of guy. But
Well, I also don't know if Rich would want anybody in there contesting his throne. So
yeah, he's not giving up the throne. I don't know why there's a throne in there, but
because he's the first. He's still
Rich built a throne in there, and he's like, I'm sitting in here. But yeah, Jorg, he's a great guy. He sometimes comes through the Chicago area, so we were talking about meeting up if he comes through, but that was like pre-COVID, and has many opportunities. So I'm hoping one day to make his acquaintance in person. But thank you, Jorg. Really appreciate all your work, everything you do for the show. It wouldn't be, especially our Whitesnake episodes, wouldn't be half as much without your input. All right, so if you want some like-minded podcasts, check out deepdivepodcastnetwork.com, where you can get episodes of shows about all sorts of different bands, kind of in the same vein as what we're doing here. Okay, here we are. We're there, John. Saints and Sinners by Whitesnake. What's your history with this album? What do you know about it?
Woo! I'm excited.
Me too. Very excited.
As I've mentioned before, I consider this the Whitesnake moving into what they would become with the '87 album. Like, I mean, I know the stepping that final stepping stone was Slide It In was the most like 80s sounding album, but this one was like right before, I believe. Yeah, I remember really always liking this album. It had some really like strong material on it. It still had that 1 foot, firmly planted in the bluesy original Whitesnake, but and I haven't heard it in a while too. So forgive me if I'm not speaking too accurately about it, but I do know that the album is like just really it's one of my favorites. Don't know when I got it, but I definitely know it was like on the later side. Like I've mentioned before, I picked up all the Whitesnake albums. It was like chaos. Whenever I would see one, I would just grab it. So or in this case, like Whitesnake cassette. So, and I still have it too. I still have all my Whitesnake cassettes in a big bin behind me somewhere buried.
Nice. Yeah. So I remember learning about John Lord and Ian Paice being in Whitesnake from you, and like this, literally the second I heard that, maybe that day or the next day or whatever, I went out to probably whatever Strawberries or whatever and picked this up, which is my CD of Saints and Sinners. And I don't know how I knew this was one of the ones that had all of them on. You might have told me, or I like did whatever we would have done to look that up then. I guess we were kind of on the internet at that point, like the early mid 90s. Like my mom had like I don't know if it would have occurred to me to even look it up. So I don't remember how I figured it out, but I was like, okay, I knew there were a few albums, and this was whatever. I think this was probably just the only one they had, so I grabbed it. And I think it was also you that had told me that, you know, they do Here I Go Again on this earlier album, and just thinking like that was wild, like that Paice, and you know, because that was a song you couldn't not be familiar with.
Right.
And I was like, wow, they did an earlier version of that, and it was almost Deep Purple. I was like, I got to check that out. So yeah, I picked this up and I still have it. It's, you know, it's an unremarkable CD, like we've talked about many times. It's just got like just a little shabby little liner notes here, and then it's got this on the back side. But it's honestly kind of mirrors what the record was, which is behind me. I've got Norman Weisselbaum's first Austrian pressing from 1982 of the album. And it's pretty much the same thing, although there's a really cool sleeve for the album that I'll show in a little bit. So yeah, to me, this was like something I listened to and really, really dug. But then, you know, it kind of fell to the back of my collection, and I didn't reach for it too often for a while. So it's been a really long time since I listened to it. I'm really excited about getting into it.
Me too.
Today. So the lead up to the album. So in December of 1981, Mickey Moody quit Whitesnake. And Moody says, by 81, people were becoming tired. We had too many late nights, too much partying. We weren't making nowhere near the kind of money we should have been making. Whitesnake always seemed to be in debt. And I thought, what is this? We're playing in some of the biggest places. We're still being told we're in debt. Where is all the money going? We hadn't got much money out of it. To be told you're 200,000 pounds in debt when you just had 6 gold albums, it wasn't just me, because everyone was getting tired, pissed off, and losing their sense of identity. It was over by then. We couldn't get any further. It's difficult for a band to go more than 3 or 4 years without getting tired of each other and losing ideas. Nothing lasts forever. Everybody wanted to do something different after a few years, a solo album or write with someone else. So one of the interesting things about reading, you know, I got a bunch of things that I read from, which I had plenty of time to read over the last few days. So we got the Whitesnake Illustrated Biography by Simon Robinson. This is a great one. Jorg actually told me about this one and found a copy pretty inexpensive on eBay, like $20 or something. It only goes up through, where does it end? Well, we see by the cover, it's going clearly into the hair. I think it ends after the 87 album. I don't even think it gets into Slip of the Tongue after that. Then you've got, of course, Bernie's side of the story. Where's My Guitar? The Bernie Marsden book, which is not to brag, but an autographed copy. Yes, thank you very much. Then we've got Sail Away, Martin Popoff's book about Whitesnake. Great read if you're looking for more information. Then we've got Mickey Moody's book, Snakes and Ladders, which honestly just goes like the very, very end of this book is about this album, and then that's it. It only goes up through there, but he calls it his autobiography. So it's really just, it goes all the way up until like, this is page 332 is about this album, and then it ends on 341. So the last chapter is about the breakup, well, about him leaving. And then of course, who could forget the great Italian publication Deep Purple, which
I love that.
I got this for like $6 on eBay. So if you're listening to the audio, or if you haven't seen me post it on social media, it's a very schizophrenic book. The book is called Deep Purple, and on the cover is Whitesnake, the band, with it's the Cozy Powell, Mel Galley lineup with Mickey Moody and Colin Hodgkinson. And then on the back of it is the lyrics to Spotlight Kid. It's like, I don't know. So you've got a picture of Whitesnake. The book is called Deep Purple, and on the back is the lyrics to a Rainbow song.
So what is I don't know if I ever asked you though, what the hell is that book about? Like,
well, it's in Italian, so I can't tell you too much. But reading about it, it does seem to be about sort of the history of Deep Purple. I did ask one of our Italian followers, and they said it was a very poorly written and rushed book. And you can tell.
You think?
But I've got a bookmark. I've got a bookmark here for my favorite chapter, which is Il Serpente Bianco di David Coverdale. So
David Coverdale's Whitesnake.
I'm assuming, yeah. Well, I've seen names: Mickey Moody, Neil Murray, Dave. They call him Dave Dowell. And then yeah, it's only like 2.5 pages, and then there's a thing about rock, and then Funky per Mr. Hughes is the name of that chapter. So it's
The best $6 you ever spent.
it really is, because it's just hilarious how poor, it's like we talk about that butterfly ball where they put a picture of Glenn Hughes on it because they're like, oh, this was written by the bass player for Deep Purple, boom, ship it. Did no research. It's kind of the same thing. They're like, Deep Purple, boom, clearly not Deep Purple. I actually saw a picture of this. Somebody had posted it, and I was like, that's got to be a Photoshop job. And then somebody told me it was real. I looked it up, and I was like, I must have this. $6.
Those are the best. Sometimes things like that are the best finds. I don't know if I ever told you this, but one of my buddy Jerry that I went to the Enough's Enough show with the other night, when I first met him, he had this bootleg Kiss t-shirt on, and I can't remember everything about it, but it was like it was like there were so many things wrong with it that it was like the best t-shirt ever. And it was like, I think it had something like the picture of like the first album cover of them, the first album cover on the front, and then on the back it said like 1984 Animalized World Tour. And I'm like, those couldn't be any different eras if you've tried. It was like, and I said, what the hell is up with that shirt? And he's like, dude, isn't it great? He's like, it sucks so bad, it's awesome. Just like it does. And so it's like, to this day, I think one of his favorite shirts. So it's like I've come to appreciate more. I think when they first come out, like I'm sure that whenever that came out, like people that were real fans were just kind of like, ugh, or maybe even afterwards. But I think we're at a point now that when things like that like are just like collector's items for the fact that there's so many things wrong with them.
Right. It's like, it's just like, how does it get so far along the process that, I mean, I guess it does cover Whitesnake and Rainbow and all that sort of stuff. So, and maybe it was done intentionally, but it just looks so funny to just this is a book about Deep Purple. And you're like, oh, I can tell this is going to be a very good book on Deep Purple if that's the cover they chose.
Since there were only 2 people that were in Deep Purple in that picture, and there aren't even Deep Purple lyrics on the back.
Hey, two's not bad. I mean, it could have been nobody.
Yeah. Would have been better. It's like
picture of like King Crimson or something.
Deep Purple and like a completely different Rush.
Yeah, it's like, oh, there's only 3 people in Deep Purple. So yeah, so great stuff. I recommend, if you can find a copy of this, picking it up. Just even I think the cover and then the chapter Il Serpente Bianco di David Coverdale were, I had already gotten $20 worth of enjoyment out of the book with those 2 things. So yeah, definitely worth checking out. So anyway, so Moody quits the band. David Coverdale holds a meeting and he's like, listen, we're going to put the band on hold. He used this opportunity to break ties with John Coletta, who had been managing him in Deep Purple and then took over as Whitesnake manager. And then from that point, after this kind of messy sort of breakup, Coverdale is like, okay, I'm free from this management. And then from that point on, Coverdale was in charge. And I think it kind of shows on subsequent albums and things. And it's interesting to just read how much of a mess this album was, like going into it, just how it was just, when you talked about how fond you are of it, I am too. And it's kind of like for me with like, Who Do We Think We Are? Like that's like I've said, I've always loved that album so much. And then you read about the making of it and you're like, oh my God, it sounds like it was a horrible experience for everyone involved, but it's funny that I like it so much. So in 1982, Marsden ended up quitting the band as well. In his book, he states that David Coverdale called a meeting, dismissed the remaining members of the band with the exception of John Lord.
Yeah, because John Lord, that's why.
Yeah, I mean, you don't really have to even ask, but I mean, everyone else is so good. So it's just, at any rate, who knows what was going on. David Coverdale in August tried to get Mickey Moody to return to the band to complete the album. So they had sort of, so they had like started recording it, and this is where it gets complicated. They started recording the album. It kind of fizzled out. They took this break, and then Coverdale wants to get everyone back to finish the album. So Marsden says in his autobiography, he said, how could it all go so wrong? The answer lay not so much in what we were doing as what we weren't. We were no longer working with the 7th member of the band. Its heart, one Martin Birch. He was the glue that held Whitesnake together. With hindsight, it's bloody easy to see. Martin was there from the start of the album sessions, and so Martin Birch, it was your fault. he was not there at the beginning. So at the beginning, they started out, they bring in Martin at the end, and it's kind of like a mess and a little confusing as to what exactly happened. Marsden goes on to say that Birch was producing Rainbow and also Iron Maiden, and he says that Iron Maiden's label was giving them he believes Iron Maiden's label was giving them more than Whitesnake's label was willing to, so Birch was spending a little more time with them. He said, when we were informed that Martin would not be producing us anymore, not one of us asked any questions, and shame on all of us for that. We should have asked why, and we should have demanded answers. In Kerrang in 1982, Coverdale talks about this decision. He says, well, Martin was ill at the time, and I was pressured, bullshitted actually, into believing that I had to deliver the album by the end of December last year. I wanted a minimum of 2 weeks rehearsal, but we ended up with our days, which turned into 2, with 4 days, which turned into 2. And then the band members around that, none of the band members being around at the same time. So they have very, very, very little time to rehearse like they would have wanted to. There was a pocket of feeling that we should produce ourselves, but it can be, it can be proved that it's a case of too many chiefs and not enough Indians, he says. His words, not mine. So there are a lot of rumors about a lineup change going around at that time with Marsden leaving. And again, Marsden's on this album, Moody's on this album. This is the last album with that kind of classic lineup. But at the same time, everyone's kind of leaving. There was rumors that Jimmy Page was going to join, David Gilmour, Mick Ralphs. All these people were rumored to have been joining the band. And at the same time, there was rumors that David Coverdale and Cozy Powell would be joining Black Sabbath. But obviously none of this stuff happened. Well, Cozy did join Black Sabbath, but that was later. So they got together at Noma Studios in West London to work on the album with Guy Bidmead, who'd worked on Marsden's solo album. So they had some kind of history with him. Marsden said that he and Coverdale had written some new material, but Mickey Moody didn't seem too interested in writing at that time. And then Marsden, of course, describes this album as the beginning of the end for what happened with the band. So they were recorded here. They recorded at Rock City, and then they just didn't feel at home. They said the band kind of hated where they were recording. They didn't have the things that they were used to, and they ended up leaving to go back to Clearwell Castle, where they were much more comfortable. And it's true, if you've seen the Beatles documentary, they start off trying to record at the was it Wickenden Studios, and they're just like, they all hate it, and like they're just like struggling and suffering and being miserable, and then they move back to like their own Apple Studios, and then they're just like instantly everyone's happier, and they're more productive, and they're getting more stuff done. So I think the environment can make a big difference. Then they also mixed the album at Britannia Row, where Marsden did some of the guitar work. Marsden says there were 2 sessions where John and Ian were both no-shows. He said to David, he said we should end the band, and that David said that's when he kind of confided him that he was working on this deal to break ties with John Coletta and all of that. So then Marsden says Coletta gathered with all of them and told them they were all out of the band. So it's this really big messy thing where like they're talking to Coverdale about wanting to leave, and then Coletta calls them all in and says they're all out, but then Coverdale gets rid of Coletta, and then calls people back to finish the album. So the actual timeline is really confusing, but basically it was a mess. So after the album was finished, Marsden ends up leaving. They do this lineup change. Neil Murray is gone. They bring in Colin Hodgkinson on bass, Mel Galley on guitar and vocals, and Cozy on drums. Although Mel Galley is the only one that will actually be on this album on backing vocals. Everything else is just the lineup that was existing before that. So yeah, they tell about the story in the Clearwell Castle and recording. I guess the manager of the castle had said that there was like there was a wedding booked, and he had to kind of tell the bride like, oh hey, by the way, there's a band called Whitesnake that's recording here. And I think the mother of the bride maybe wasn't too happy about that, but then they apparently end up crashing the wedding and like hanging out and having a blast. And they said Billy Connolly was there with his girlfriend, and they end up hanging up. And what does he say? The exact quote in Moody's book, he says Billy Connolly and Pamela Stevenson, who was his girlfriend at the time, later his wife, they were wedding guests. And then he grabbed a banjo that belonged to Mickey Moody and started playing. And he said they partied with the wedding guests, and they were indulging in a combination of toot and booze. I like toot. Toot. Toot, toot. Toot, toot toot.
Like a choo-choo train.
It must have been, they must have been playing Choo Choo Train. That's the only thing you can think of.
I
So
love it. It's just like, honey, would you mind if we shared our wedding venue with Whitesnake?
It's also funny just doing coke at a wedding. I guess it was the 80s and that's what you did, but it's like, like they link arms and they eat their own slice of cake, they do that with like some blow and like
And then with
they link arms. It's like, oh no, is he gonna shove the blow in her face? It's like, oh no, he let her just snort it off his finger. How romantic.
Oh, that's so 80s.
Yeah, very 80s, doing blow at a freaking wedding. So interestingly, and it's represented here on the cover there, and inside there's no credit for the lineup of the band. So they don't mention anybody. The only people they mention is on backing vocals, the Paratroopers, which is David Coverdale, Mel Galley, and Mickey Moody, the Paratroopers doing, who went in, but they don't credit the band, which is Coverdale, Moody, Marsden, Murray, Paice, and Lord. So nobody else is credited in the album. And it's not just I checked the album behind me, and even on Discogs, they don't credit it, which they're usually really, they're really faithful to what's on the album. And it's no different for this because they aren't on this album. So it's very, very interesting how that worked out. So on the production end, we have Guy Bidmead, who did the backing tracks. It's recorded. It's credited to, even though he did the kind of backing track section of it, it says produced by Saint Martin Doc Birch on this one. So he's got like two. He's a Saint and a Doc.
Wow,
so that's interesting. And then also
two nicknames.
And Brian New on also helped produce this as well. Looks like just the backing vocals section, but he's got hundreds and hundreds of credits on Discogs. So obviously may have started early with this, but went on to do a lot of really a lot of stuff, have a really prolific career. Okay, so with that, we are left with, of course, the album cover. And John, what do you think about this album cover if I can ever find it? Where the heck is it? Oh, there it is. What do you think of this album cover?
Hey, there we go. I've always liked this album cover. I don't know if I've ever seen it so up close. Or a lot of these I've never really analyzed, but
Oh, you're probably looking at a tiny little square in the cassette.
yeah. But of course I love the classic Whitesnake logo. And the Saints and Sinners, I love the font, that kind of what would you call it? Like a storybook type of like S, like you see it in like an old,
exactly.
like
it's like starts off a paragraph in like a, in a old book that you're reading. Like,
yeah, but I like the I mean, I always thought that this was like a statue, but it kind of looks like an ornament now that I see it like up close. But I've always liked the we'll call it the statue look of it, because it's very, I don't know, I just feel like with the font and like the statue with the I guess it's the angel with wings and then the woman leaning back kissing it, just kind of always look kind of like like old, what am I trying to say? Not old timey, because that evokes a different thing.
Makes like a guy in like an old hat. Hey,
riding a unicycle.
As old times, it looks like Renaissance or
yes, there we go.
Be prepared, because we're going to talk a little bit about art, and I think we're probably on equal footing as much as what we know about art history. So if there's any art history guys out there, we're going to be biffing at hard time.
But like going to see like a statue in Rome or Greece or something like that. Like I feel like it's trying to evoke that type of feeling. And then of course you have to have the requisite snake over on the side, like you kind of horning in on their business, like, yeah, kiss that broad, he's saying, yeah, kiss her.
But it's very, the serpent is very biblical too. So,
but yeah, I guess it could be seen that way. But I really like it. this kind of like album cover, because it makes me think of like it makes me think a little bit of like the Burn album, where you had like the, you know, the candles and the black background. You know, it kind of like, when you really look at it, you're like, oh, okay, it looks like it was kind of on the cheap, you know, because now it
Yeah,
looks like
yeah.
an ornament. Whereas you look at the candles on the Burn album cover and you're like, oh yeah, there were unfinished prototypes and the heads were kind of melted or whatever, but it still looks cool.
Yeah. Well,
And
the one
also,
where he's like, hey, I was just sending that to you as an idea and you used it as the album cover. What the hell?
yeah, just like the Glenn Hughes Christmas album. Hey Glenn, what? All right, print it, you know, as he's like walking out the door. But the other album that it makes me think of, which is I feel it tries to go for a similar type of feel, is the Black Sabbath Eternal Idol album cover, which I've
Oh, yeah,
talked
yeah,
about
yeah.
before, where it has the two, like, I always thought it was statues, but I think when I saw a vinyl copy of it, I realized that it was two actual people, like,
Oh, really?
painted
I
up
thought it
and
was
like
statues too.
posing like statues. So yeah, anything with that kind of like artistic or museum or like old monument looking type of, you know, album cover, I always think that works really well with like hard rock / metal. I always think it's like kind of a cool concept. So yeah, I like this one. And there's also something about the color of it too that always grabbed me, even though there's not a lot of colors going on, but it's kind of like that kind of like beige, yellow, sepia type of tone or
Yeah,
whatever that's kind of stands out. It's just like there's something about it that always kind of grabbed my eye, but I can't put my finger on it.
I think it just kind of invokes the idea of seeing this in like a museum, like that same sort of lighting that you might get.
Yeah.
But yeah, I always really liked this too, and I was surprised when I read like a lot of the reviews mentioned it and mentioned that they didn't like the album cover. And Simon Robinson described it as, in quote, a kitschy sculpture of the kind some folk insist on decorating their mantelpieces with. So it kind of goes back to that thing where you said it looks like an ornament, and I think that would be my main criticism of it. It looks small.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It doesn't look like this is like, I don't think that's what they were going for, but it looks like it was probably, you know, about this big, and they took a photo of it because it doesn't have that detail you'd have in a big one. So it's based on an actual sculpture. This is the sculpture. So, and this is by Antonio Canova. And it's entitled Amore e Psiche. I might be pronouncing that.
Hey, I knew it. It was a paisan.
Hey, forget about it.
I knew it was a paisan. I knew this had to be an Italian sculpture.
But it's Cupid kissing Psyche, and a little bit more. You know, he's covering the breasts there, but Coverdale is probably like, no, we need to see some boobies. So you get in the album cover, you got these like Barbie boobies with no nipples. Probably like a concession they would have to make to be able to sell the album cover, because it looks more like a Barbie doll. So that's the original sculpture, which has that more grand scale to it, because obviously it's probably life size, if not bigger. And then this was based on a painting from that I guess he saw when he was in Rome. But I found this as well, which is a painting of the same sort of idea. And I think this one is, from what I saw, this was credited to the same guy who did the sculpture, Antonio Canova. So I'm not sure. Again, I might be butchering that, getting some of it wrong. This one, you get a bonus nutsack.
Oh, all right. Yep, I saw it.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know. Maybe in the original, if we could 365 rotate it, maybe you could see that there. But
a bonus nutsack.
This one has nipples and a nutsack, so I don't know why they were a little bit more modest in the sculpture. But yeah, so there you go. But pretty interesting. So I guess this was done in the like late 1700s.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they're like, Antonio, hey, we got to keep this PG-13, huh? No nutsack, no nipples.
We saw the painting. Tone it down a little on the sculpture, if you know what I'm saying.
Capiche?
We don't want to have any problems.
Well, you're gonna have problems. Tony.
Hey, Tony.
Hey, Tony.
So the back cover of the album, in keeping with the, it's funny you mentioned Trying to Burn the Sun. It looks almost the same pose he's taking with that mic stand.
Right.
So on the cover is just Coverdale on the back cover. And like I said, they don't credit anyone else in the band other than the backing vocalists, which is an odd move. But yeah, you've got just a picture of just Coverdale with a mic stand. So it looks like they kind of did rush the album art piece of it a little bit. The sleeve, like I told you, is really cool. It's that same sculpture lit in blue light, and that's on a background, and you've got all the lyrics kind of superimposed over the top of it. And then the back side is literally the back side of the sculpture with a little Cupid butt poking through
showing
the
some
lyrics.
ass.
A little blue bum. So
Showing some ass.
showing some
Blue ass, but blue ass, but they didn't show blue balls. You know what I'm saying?
hey. You've got the record label here, Liberty Records. Nothing crazy there. So that's the rundown of the album cover. I think it's, I don't know, I always liked it. I don't know, I find like when I really like something like this, people are quick to just chime in and be like, it stinks, it's not good. But I don't know, I always liked it. The only thing I would say about it, like it does look like it's a picture of something small rather than something grand, but it always looked like a cool album cover to me.
I mean, I feel like it depends on what era you grew up in, but I mean, it's like, I would like, I mean, you could probably say the same as whether you got something on record, CD, or cassette. That you would like those formidable years you would spend like just sitting there like looking at the album cover. I mean, even though like I had the cassettes or whatever, I would just spend like hours just like listening to like Ozzy and like looking at the Blizzard of Oz cassette or the Diary of a Madman cassette or whatever. Or Speak of the Devil, I spent countless hours looking at that and being scared shitless of it. But it's just like, so I can imagine like, maybe 10 years before us, looking at the record albums were a much better experience because at least they were large enough that you could look at the details. But as I got older, like albums like this, I would just kind of glance at it and be like, oh, cool, and never really just kind of like sit there and study it. And so that's why a lot of times when you pull up the album cover, like today, I noticed for the first time, it's like, oh, that kind of looks like an ornament. It looks like something small scale. Whereas when at a quick glance, I was like, oh, it's a big sculpture.
Yeah, and on the cassette, it's either going to be that square that's super tiny so it fits on the cassette, or it's going to be cropped, like poorly cropped. So yeah, and either way was bad because when it was full size, I mean, it was tiny. It was probably like, I don't know, a sixth the size of the CD, which is in turn maybe a sixth the size of the record. So yeah, you don't get that same. But yeah, there was nothing else to do. So you just would look, you'd read the liner notes, and in case of an album like this, you'd be kind of disappointed because I guess you get the lyrics, but there's not really anything else. Some albums were, but you'd have something like Sgt. Pepper. I remember just sitting there looking at that record thinking, who are all these people? And trying to figure that out. But yeah, some albums were a little more interesting than others. All right, so before we get into the album proper, we have to do something, which is, of course, to thank our core level patrons coming in at the $7.77 Keep It Warm Rat tier. We have Michael Vader at the episode $6.66 tier, Steve Coldwell, Arthur Smith, and Anton Glaving. At the $6.65 Almost Evil tier, we have Kenny Wymore. And $5.99 Nice Price tier, we have Fielding Fowler, Robert Smith, Peter from Illinois, Michael Bagford, and Carl Helberg. And at the $5 money lender tier, John Convery, German Heindel, Adrian Hernandez, Jesper Elman, Alexei the Perfect Stranger Slepikov, James North, Mark Hodgetts, Will Porter, Zwapper the Electric Alchemist, Tim Southern Cross Johnson, and Percival Frequency. Thank you so much to all of your generous support of the Deep Purple podcast. And it is worth mentioning, so there was a lot of talk, again, they talk about these albums that are a mess, all the behind the scenes stuff, but when we got into the album, we didn't know any of the story, we didn't know any of the production details. We just listened to it, and we listened for the music and liked the music. So there is a lot of talk also about the production being really, really spotty on this album. So I have the 2007 master, but I decided last night to rip my original CD pressing. When I don't know when this was from, but the album, it just says 1982 on the inside, so I'm assuming this is probably the first CD released by Geffen. So I just ripped it from here because I was like, you know what, I want to listen to as close to the original sound as possible, and then we can listen afterwards, and maybe we'll agree with some of the things people are saying about the original mix, and maybe we won't. I don't know. But with that, we're going to get straight into it, and our first track up On the first side of the album is a track called Youngblood.
Oh, I need a lot more volume.
More volume than that.
Yeah.
Really snarly bass there.
Yeah. So far, so good. Yeah, the bass really makes this song.
It's really growling and almost distorted, but in a good way.
I mean, all the elements of classic Whitesnake thus far right here.
Great pacey snare fills there.
Youngblood. We
Watch
know what
me
he's
now.
talking about. We know what you're talking about, Coverdale.
Yeah, even if we don't know what you're talking about, we can just assume and then you kind of reverse engineer how they got to the title of the song.
Oy. So far, great playing, great vocals.
Really driving.
Yeah, it's a great opening track.
There's a lot of talk too. They'll probably get into later about Ian Paice just being off his game on this album.
Off
No,
his
this-
game?
I mean, that's what they say. I think that's what he thought. But this solo here is by Marsden.
Great tone.
That sounds great. I don't know. I'm not a production snob, so I don't really. I don't know. It's like people that are just like, oh yes, my TV, yes, you know, OLED, 1080p or 4K or whatever. That like, I'm like, I don't know. I just like to watch movies. I mean, I don't want them to look like garbage, but like, I don't. I can see it, but it doesn't. I guess it just doesn't really affect my enjoyment that much. I mean,
No,
there's a point
I'm the
where it would if
same.
it was all staticky and sounded like garbage, but this sounds really good to me.
No, I'm the same. I don't get too much into it.
There's probably Mel Galley in there somewhere. All right, just for fun, I'm going to put on just a few seconds of the 2007 remix and see if there's any. I mean, it sounds better.
Well, first of all, it's louder.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, anyways. I feel like the bass is mixed down a little bit. I don't know. I feel like the bass was a little more driving in the original.
Oh, well, yeah, that's.
I don't know. You know, I mean, I'm not one of those. Like, I mean, I don't know. I feel like people like we talk to like Scott or Chris L.
Mhm.
They have really good ears. I mean, you know, Scott is an audio engineer. Chris L, musician from Pot of Thunder, who's been, you know, his commentary on things is always really informed. And it's like, I feel like it's a blessing and a curse at the same time, because some, you know, they'll hear things that'll like either make them enjoy it more, just be like, that snare sounds like something or other. It's like, I don't know, like,
Yeah.
you know, I feel like I'm better off not knowing sometimes and just enjoying the music. So
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I guess I'm technically an audio engineer, but I guess it just doesn't like. I guess it just doesn't bother me that much. Like I don't. I guess I just don't care if there's great songs
Yeah.
and great playing, like like I can tell that sounds better, but nine times out of 10, the thing that makes it sound better is like what you commented on. It's just louder, and that's what the volume wars and brick wall mastering and everything has kind of led us to, is everything just
Right.
having to be at this volume level. If you listen to one after the other, or if you're listening to them, like if you have a shuffle on, or if you're going from album to album on your phone, and it goes from an
Mm.
album from the 70s to an album from a few years ago, it's going to be like you have to turn the volume down because it'll blow your ears out.
You're like, whoa.
You could definitely equate that with sounding better. I mean, I think they did some things with the EQ and maybe some compression, and made it sound a little fuller on that other mix. Like there's no denying it from the little bit that I heard, but I'm happy with the original mix. And
Yeah,
we'll
totally.
continue on with that one.
For the next song though, I figure just because like I could the volume that you played the remaster on
Was
sounded
too
like
loud.
it was no, actually it was perfect for me. So if you could
Okay.
maybe the original, maybe bump it up like another like, from 50 to 60%, because it was a little hard to hear. But I mean I could still, or to hear it to the level that I wanted.
Sure. All right, we'll give that a try. All right. So
All
what
right.
are you ranking Youngblood?
Youngblood gets a solid 4.
All right.
Great opening track. Like I said during the song, it's got all of the classic Whitesnake elements in there that we've come to expect from the first few albums, especially like I mean, the sound, the playing, like the writing. But there was that one part where he was like, I think it was in the pre-chorus, like where he's like, da na 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 na. I mean, that's kind of like a classic Whitesnake melody there, where he's like, na 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 na. It's like, I don't know. It could be like a different variation on that in like a dozen different Whitesnake songs, but it's like, I don't know. It's classic. I love that Coverdale has a writing style, that they had a formula. Like even if they weren't the biggest band in the world at that point, they had a signature. They had a stamp. That's why they're so memorable.
Absolutely. I will also give this one a 4. Solid opener. Great swagger to it. Great style.
Yeah.
Love Pacey's drum fills. Murray's bass playing, as always, just really livens up the song. Really great
Hell
stuff.
yeah.
Okay. Well, with that, we go on to our second track, which is Rough and Ready.
Yeah, I love this. That's such like a dirty riff. Volume is perfect too.
Super classic Whitesnake song with all the hallmarks.
Mm-hmm.
The bass isn't quite as snarly, but it's still really prominent in the mix. And that's what I don't understand. People are saying that it sounds like the bass is really far in the background. I think it's sitting really nice in the mix here.
Mm-hmm. Although I feel like now that we talked about it, I'm like, oh, I'm not an audio engineer or anything. I'm like, I feel like the drums sound kind of tinny, I guess.
Yeah.
Like hissy, or it's like, I don't know. Now I think I'm overthinking it.
No, I think you're hearing a lot of the Mickey Moody solo.
I mean, it's not ruining it.
I think
but,
you're hearing too much hi-hat.
Maybe, yeah, that could probably be it.
Classic blues percussion in the song. Nothing out of the ordinary, but done with a lot of flair and energy. Great ham in there. Cool effect. Here, Coverdale do that very often with his vocals for that sort of delay on it. That was a cool ending.
Oh yeah. I mean, that song
really
rocks.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, that's another Whitesnake thing. No. And then-
No. I think Rich has a new ringtone.
And then, and he goes, no. Who's that calling? Oh, it's Roger Glover
No, it can only be my
or Nate.
Del Shannon impression.
Who's calling?
Right.
It's either Nate or Roger.
The two titans in the rock world.
Guess which one is bigger?
All right, Rough and Ready. How do you rank that one?
I love I love Rough and Ready, the song and the thing.
And the ringtone.
I'll give that one a solid 4. I was thinking a little bit more, but you know what? I'm going to let it sit at a 4 because like now I don't know if I psyched myself out by thinking like, oh, there's a couple of production things in there because now all of a sudden I'm an audio expert, you know. But I have to say that the strength of that song is like I've always loved that song. It was like the first 2 songs of that perfect 1-2 punch, and the biggest thing for me is that another like kind of like classic Whitesnake template there is like that main guitar part is just always so like that's classic Whitesnake, classic blues, like classic rock, and it's just got that dirty bend in there and everything. Like I'd listen to him play it all day, you know. Like the way he bends it up and everything, he's kind of like, yeah, you know, that's like I mean that's also like classic like blues playing, like, you know, Moody Marsden style that they brought to Whitesnake and updated it to be, you know, modern rock. So it's like that's probably one of my favorite riffs on the album. I don't know, can you call that a riff or guitar parts?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm always I don't really know what where the line is between riff and not riff. I mean,
well, let's say it's the riff of the song.
More like
so
it's more lead to be a riff in my opinion, but who knows?
But it's cool.
I know what you mean, so who cares?
I love it. I like, you know, I give it a 4.5 just for that, but like I said, I'll let it rest at a 4, but this song I never turn off. So
I'll give it a 4 as well. And like you said, like any production things I'm picking up on so far are like super minor. Oh yeah, the hi-hats are a little loud or whatever. I mean, there's albums that sound like garbage and everything, but like the bottom line is it's all about the songs. You know what I mean? Like if would you rather, you know, and it's all a matter of taste too, but like would you rather watch a movie like Casablanca in black and white and all fuzzy on VHS, or like, I don't know, the latest like 3-hour Marvel movie with all the fixins that cost $200 billion to make? You know, like at the end of the day, you know, I'm going to go with the movie that's got the best story and that's the most fun to watch. And if you have fun watching that Marvel movie, great. But for me, it's more about the story and the characters and the acting and the plot than it is about how flashy it is. And it's the same thing with music for me. I'd rather hear, you know, a Beatles album from 1965 that's, you know, of course, well, that's a bad example because it's produced by one of the best producers in the world who's ever lived. But even by that standard, you know, listening to that versus whatever the latest by, I don't even know what the hell Machine Gun Kelly will say, I'm sure has a higher budget and a better, and not knocking him because I don't know, I couldn't name a single thing about him other than that he exists. But like, obviously I'm going to go with the album that I know and like. And hey, for all I know, I'm a huge Machine Gun Kelly fan. Maybe I just got to give him a chance. But again, to me, it's about songs and songwriting, or about plot and acting versus the like how flashy and how amazing the technology is behind it. So All right. That brings us to our next track, which is called Bloody Luxury.
Nothing new going on here.
Nope. That's not a bad thing, though.
But still, like, great, great guitar sound though. So now I'm wondering like what all the production talk is about, because it's like, the bass is rocking, guitars have a nice like dirty tone to them.
Great rollicking piano. The solo is by two solos, one by Marsden, one by Moody.
Let's see if we can guess who's who.
Just listen for the slide. So now he's like working in like a little organ synth sort of thing too.
Yeah, I love what John Lord does in this song.
It's great to be that confident. Laughing your own song.
Yeah, I think it's pretty amazing too. Like just coming off the heels of the John Lord tribute episodes, that a musician can do so much and like such grand compositions, and then also like be happy doing stuff like this.
Yeah. That's why he's so great.
I mean, you probably got a kick out of it. I mean, if you're a great musician, you can just sit there and, like you said, rollick in the background like this and just be like, yeah, this is awesome. I'm feeling great.
Yeah. And it's got to be so easy for him to have a good time. And then he kind of did stuff like this to like the Hoochie Coochie Men later, just did some basic blues stuff and had a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Like an octaver or something? Weird effect.
Yeah, but it's really good. I love it.
Great.
This is my kind of guitar playing right here. I mean, that's like straight ahead, like pentatonic blues playing, which is like my friggin' favorite. You'll never not play that for me, and I'll be like, yeah, I'm bored with that. I don't want to hear that now.
Yeah, you can believe you sweep arpeggios for like 30 seconds and you'd be falling asleep. But
I mean, yeah, great when you're in the mood, but there's a limit to that. That's such a catchy little bit in there. And John Lord makes it fun. I love it.
Yeah. I don't know. Moody must have been doing something in the middle of that, or they maybe they were trading off and weren't picking up on it. But
or maybe you think that maybe instead of like you said like an octave, or maybe like they were playing together. One of them was like on the high and one of them was on the lower octave.
Maybe I don't know. I have to listen back to it.
Could be. I mean, back in those days, it was a little more fly by the seat of our pants and like all these technology. And everything that we were just talking about.
Yeah, so Bloody Luxury, I was surprised in reading some. I don't have any of the quotes here, but a lot of people were kind of slagging on that song. Just, Bloody Luxury is stupid, or it's whatever. And I was like, I don't think so. Again, it's following that blues pattern from the previous song, but it's being done so well that it's not a boring blues song. By any
I
stretch.
love it. I love it. I think it's great.
All right, what do you rate it?
Another 4 for me.
All right. I will echo that. I can't think of anything that would bring it below that, just based on the playing, the energy, the John Lord's piano and keyboards, and Murray's bass and the solo. I mean, the confident, cocky vocal. He's laughing all over the place. He's laughing in the beginning, middle, and the end.
Yeah, he's just laughing all over. He's just cracking up all over the whole song. That's but yeah, I mean, it's I would say that the song itself, like if you just played it for anybody, even like a Whitesnake fan, they'd be like, all right, another Whitesnake kind of blues song. It's like yawn, whatever, next. But there's just something about it, already in the context of the album, 1, 2, 3 Punch.
Yep.
And I can't remember where the album was going. I have this sinking feeling that it's going to start to go downhill at some point. We're going to experience some peaks and valleys, but
or some fatigue. Yeah, like
I'm not sure when, but so far I'm not having a problem with the quote unquote spotty production, and the playing is good. And what I find too is a lot of these albums where they talk about like, people like, in turmoil, like, oh, the band was in turmoil and stuff. Sometimes from that turmoil comes like a really great product, because that tension, creates great art.
Yeah.
Not always. Sometimes it creates garbage, but
That's true. But yeah, I mean, I think they had a formula down by this point that kind of worked really well. And speaking of formulas, I didn't mention the songwriting credits, but you can kind of tell based on the guitar solos. So Youngblood was Coverdale Marsden. Marsden took the solo. Rough and Ready was Coverdale Moody. Moody took the solo. Bloody Luxury was Coverdale Martin Moody. Martin and Moody took solos. So so far there's a 1-to-1 ratio on that will not hold up through the entire album, but that's the songwriting credits. And the next song is called Victim of Love, and this one is written by Coverdale Moody, and you probably guess who takes the solo. And this solo was done after being rushed back to the studio with Mel Galley to do backing vocals, and they, I guess, had a solo on here they weren't happy with, so he redid it. Whenever I can, like a lamb to the slaughter, another sacrifice, for giving love to a woman with a heart stone cold as ice. I'm down on love, and I'm clean out of pain. This sounds like 87 Whitesnake to me. Not the production.
Yeah, because you have that dun 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 dun.
Yep.
Yeah, that rhythm there is very what they were going to do with Slow and Easy and some other stuff like that.
Here's some of those paratrooper backing vocals. Nice little double stop. Chorus almost sounds like if somebody parodying Whitesnake, like just being like, I'm gonna write something that sounds super Whitesnake.
Well, that's
not really
what he did.
fair because it is Whitesnake, but it just seems like I almost visioned it like one of those cutscenes in Spinal Tap where they just show them like, oh, and then they did this album, and they show them playing a few bars from it.
Yeah.
You could really hear Mel Galley on that part. There's Moody on the solo. You might not have picked up on that because there was no slide. Usually you can tell.
The song's got another good groove to it.
Yeah. Fade out here instead of one of those tight endings, but so far again another song that's rocking, great energy, great groove. no frills as far as the arrangement goes. Very
No.
standard arrangement, but
And my guess is that if they did do a hard ending, it would have been a victim of love. Ha!
oh yeah.
Either ha ha or
yeah, just the panting.
like, all right, easy Coverdale.
Coverdale, take it easy. Although he puts so much force into it, if you see him sing live, like I mean, I think it's legit. He's just like out of breath. He puts like everything into it.
Oh yeah.
All right, what do you think of Victim of Love?
So I'll give Victim of Love a 3.5. Another great song. There's just something about it. Maybe like the chorus, especially toward the end, was just getting a little repetitive. I think, like you just said, there was no frills in terms of the arrangement here, so it was just pretty straightforward. Another great song, really hooky. I would say just like maybe a little. I liked it a little less than the first few songs, but doesn't take away from how good it is. Plus, I really like the opening. I like the opening where it's like I always thought like when he's saying like a lamb to the slaughter, another sacrifice. I'm always like, that's kind of weird lyrics. Like they sounded, you know what I mean? It sounded kind of weird because I always thought they sounded like, wow, there's some like death metal lyrics or something. But he's like, it's Whitesnake, and then of course like the rhythm, which is that boom, boom, boom. Which was very slow and easy, still of the night, but it's, really catchy. And I liked it.
Yeah, me too. I don't think you said anything that I wouldn't say. I would say a 3.5 as well. I don't think I have anything to add. I think you covered it all. It's good. It's a really good track. I think I maybe like by the middle of the first side or towards the end of the first side, you're expecting, I think, more of like maybe a little more of a departure stylistically, not wild, but changing up a little. And it's just a little samey from the other songs, but I mean, that's not even really a critique. It's just,
but I mean, it also shows like a continuity of the album. Like I really feel like, it does sound like one, continuous album. It doesn't really sound fragmented or anything, not yet anyways.
No, if you read these books like about, I haven't been listening to the album on purpose, and I've been reading all these books about it, and I was like, man, this is going to sound like a patchwork mess, but so far it sounds very, very contiguous, very coherent. So which lead us to the last track on the first side of the album, which is Crying in the Rain, which will of course be re-recorded for the 87 album.
Black cotton moans when he's burning with a fever. A stray dog howls when he's lonely in the night. A woman go crazy with the thoughts of retribution. But a man starts weeping when he's sick and tired of life.
Oh, that's great.
It's so funny. It's got like that blues feel to it, but then it almost sounds like a metal song the way they're bringing in the lead guitars. That's such a great little line there.
Yeah. It is a great blues song.
This song was written about the breakup of Coverdale's first marriage. He wrote it in Portugal, co-written with Marsden. Coverdale described this song as the new Mistreated, and I think they, if I'm not mistaken, replaced Mistreated in the set with this moving forward.
Didn't he say that about some other song?
Probably. There's Mistreated. Again, I think you hear some Mel Galley vocals there. Mel Galley sounds so much like Glenn Hughes that I think that becomes noticeable.
I love those unison bends like in the chorus. Just really adds to like the kind of like the anguish of the song. Oh, he said mistreated.
There's any ambiguity. Which is great because it's like, it doesn't sound anything like mistreated, but it's a great, it has a lot of those same ups and downs and hits some of those same notes in a figurative sense, not a literal sense.
Right.
Great vocal showcase for him. Great blues song. You just hears like, it sounds like Glenn Hughes is singing backups.
Yeah, he could have gotten Hughes.
Mel Galley is very, he's like a restrained Glenn Hughes when he sings. And having this kind of low point too for a guitar solo is very mistreated. So.
Yeah, I love that.
Lots of space. And this is a Marsden solo. I haven't heard the 87 version of this in a while, so.
Yeah, I have some thoughts on that.
Although probably more recently than I've heard this version. But I like this version a lot. Very uncharacteristic little Coverdale vocal run there. Almost went to Gillan territory. Again, great Neil Murray bass fills. So there's an interesting story in Bernie Marsden's book where he tells the story about how they were all sitting around watching the news. And there was a TV report on about the mass extermination of farm animals in the area. I guess they were killing all these farm animals. And they go up to this like guy that they described as just like a real, like, you know, backwards kind of looking guy. You know, look a real, I guess what we would call in America a hick. And we go up to the guy and I ask him, like, what do you think about all these farm animals getting murdered? And he just said, there's plenty more about. I guess they thought it was really funny. So that during the recording of this song, when they got to the line where David's supposed to sing "Black Cat Moans" when he's burning with a fever, instead he sang, or he just said, he did an imitation of the guy and he went, "Plenty more about," and then everyone just started cracking up. So they actually had to like suspend the recording for like an hour so everyone could just kind of get their composure because no one could stop laughing every time they were trying to do the song. So Marsden says he has a tape of this and that he still listens to it and thinks it's hilarious. Marsden, if you're listening, we'd love to hear that.
Oh yeah, you kidding me?
Just one of those like little inside joke things that happens when you're, you know, making something or recording that just like cracks everybody up. All right, what do you think of "Crying in the Rain"?
Okay, so I'm gonna have to try and um, I was gonna try and keep my opinions of it like separate from the 87 version, but I can't because that's the one that I heard the first. Um, so I'll give it a 3.5.
Okay.
Because I still think it's a great version of the song, but I have some things I like about it and some things I don't like about it. I feel like I give like this song starts off the 87 album.
Mhm.
And there are things about like this song that like, like between the two versions, like I got to give it to the 87 version for like his vocal performance. And I feel like, especially the beginning of this one, it's like, I feel like Coverdale like kind of mailed in this performance because he sounded like when he's like,
On the 87 version or on this one?
no, on this version, because like at the beginning when he says a stray dog howls, right? He
Yeah.
sounded like very like, it almost sounded like he was just kind of like, all right.
Yeah.
And it's like, and if you hear him on the 87 version, he's just like when he says the word howls, he's like, how is he like he growls it, and it's
Yeah.
just like that's the kind of intensity I wish that he brought to the vocal performance here. And it almost like, and I wouldn't say that they're different in terms of like, intensity. It's just this one here, it almost sounds like he was just kind of bored when he was recording it. Which for Coverdale, it's like we've already heard in like the previous few songs that he's not, you know, you know what I mean? He's not mailing in all of his vocal performances, but he also hits the stratosphere. And I mean, it's like what, 6, 7 years later with some of the ways that he like, he does like, you said at the end where he's like, wow, he almost goes into Gillan territory. Well, he really goes into Gillan territory like later, which is even more impressive because he's older and he had vocal issues then.
Yeah.
Before that album. But some of the things that this song has, so I mean, unfortunately, I have to give it to like, Coverdale isn't like, I would say didn't give the best performance on this song. However, the guitars, I think, have it on this song over the 87 version because, like I said, it's like you got the really bluesy opening. I love this as a blues song. And like, the bends during like, bam, 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 they don't do that in the newer version, the more, metal version of it. And then like slowing down the solo, like they really go intense with the solo and like the double bass drums, like in the later version. And this one, they take it down, like you said, to that mistreated territory, that really bluesy territory. And I like that a lot better. I was thinking of ways like that I could not turn this into a comparison between the two versions, but I really can't.
No, it's
hard
if you know it, if you know it as well.
But just on its own, like just listening to it, I'm just like, yeah, I've heard this enough where I'm just like, Coverdale sounds like he must have just like been off during this take, or during these vocals. Just doesn't sound like he's given it the intensity he usually gives.
Well, I'm giving it a 4. And most recently I've listened. So on the UK version of the 87 album, they opened with Still of the Night, and Crying in the Rain is like somewhere in the middle of the album. So not that really matters, but I feel like I don't really associate this one as much as with being an album opener.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, as its place on the closing side of side one on this, I always I don't know, I really enjoyed it. Although it wasn't side one for me, it was just the middle of the CD. But
yeah,
imagining it as us close to side one, I think it's a good. It's longish, but it doesn't feel long. I love those guitar notes, and I think his vocals are great on it. So, I think off the top of my head, I prefer this over the 87 version, but we'll find out one day when we get to that album.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's that's track 1 of 2 on this album that are redone for the 87 album, which brings us to the second re-recorded song for the 87 album, and that is, of course, a little track you may have heard before called Here I Go Again.
I don't know where I'm going. sure know where I've been, hanging on the promises and songs of yesterday. And I've made up my mind, I ain't wasting no more time, but here I go again.
I love the organ effect that he uses on this.
Here I go again.
Yeah, this is great having John Lord and him together in this opening.
Though I keep searching for an
Of course,
answer,
the song was written by Marsden, and Coverdale did the lyrics.
I never
He
seem to
rewrote the
find
lyrics
what
after
I'm
the fact.
looking for.
And Marsden said when he played the chords for this to John Lord, John Lord said, "You're a clever little sod, aren't you?" It's probably the best compliment you could possibly have, playing something for John Lord that you wrote. I think that's the biggest thing, when that ba 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 ba, when that comes in, it's so much less grand than the '87 version, which is
Yeah.
so overproduced. But that to me is a good thing.
I mean, I love the guitar sound in this too.
More paratroopers backing vocals.
Just another heart in need of rescue, waiting on love's sweet charity. And I'm gonna hold on for the rest of my days, 'cause I know what it means to walk along.
I mean, this song really grooves. Like, I really like it.
Of course, there's the hobo line that we neglected to mention. Probably the only
Thing that I don't like about it, it's the only
Yeah.
thing that bugs me.
The only
like
thing that the '87 version clearly has an advantage over.
Yeah.
It's a weird line, but he recognized that and rightly changed it, I think. And even when Bernie Marsden performs it now, he uses the drifter line.
Yeah, well, of course.
Even though he was a band, he knows. There he goes again.
I like this nice, sweet, laid-back solo.
Marsden said he was giving a nod to John Lennon's "Woman" in the arpeggio in the solo. Not Yoko, his song "Woman." John Lennon's "Woman."
Yoko, this one's for you.
And I don't know if it's just because of the '87 version that probably everyone on Earth has heard 20 times more than this version, but every time he says hobo, you're like, wait, what? It's very distracting.
Yeah. Remember the first time I heard that, I'm like, wait, what?
No,
Like, come on, man.
There's a Blood, Sweat, and Tears song where they mention hobos that's weird too, and then there's a Tommy Bolin song where he throws in hobo. I was just a hobo. Alexis, right?
Which song? I can't remember.
It's Alexis. I was just a hobo.
But actually, I think that one worked. Because it was kind of buried in there. This one sticks out like a sore thumb. It's like a slap in the face.
He's doing the heavy breathing like you just mentioned. Although it sounds good when he does it, not when I do it.
Yeah. You just sound like you have an asthma attack. Oh,
All right. So So what do we think about the 1982 of Here I Go Again? You look like he's rubbing his forehead. He's if he had glasses, he'd be taking them off and be just massaging the bridge of his nose.
I don't know what to do. No, because I really like, I mean, I'm not trying to be, I'm not trying to be like, funny about it or anything, but it's like that fucking hobo line ruins it. It's like, so it's like, I'm trying to figure out like what to, what I would give it. You know what? I'm going to give it a 4, despite the hobo line. Because like when I listen to this song, I feel like if the lyrics were like a Drifter, I Was Born to Walk Alone, I would say that it was equally as good, if not better, than the version that became a huge radio hit later on. Because the song has, first of all, the song has John Lord and Ian Paice in it, right? So there's one thing. Second of all, the performance in the song, like they're actually, both versions are very similar in that like it didn't change a lot. Like Coverdale's performance is, Coverdale's performance is still really good. The guitar tone in this are good and consistent, meaning like he sang it pretty much the same way, but there are a couple little like, flourishes in there that kind of like, all right, that's different, that's kind of like a different melody type thing. The guitar, I really like the guitar has this kind of like, I don't know, like this gated kind of sound. I don't know how to describe it, but I really like it because it sounds early 80s. It sounds raw, bluesy. It sounds like it belongs, with the early version of Whitesnake, the paratroopers background vocals,
classic paratroopers.
Classic paratroopers. But it's like, it's much less produced, but I feel like if you put this on the radio, you play that, people would be like, oh, that's that song. And they probably wouldn't have even noticed it if it weren't for that one lyric. Or they'd be like, oh, what's this, an alternate version? Or if you had it on the background, like most people probably wouldn't even know. They'd be like, oh, there's that Whitesnake song. Yeah. I have to think like, I don't want to fault it for that one line, because it's like when you hear it over and over again, you kind of get used to it. You're just like, okay, this is the original version. It's going to have that ridiculous lyric in there. But I mean, everything surrounding that, like that's say like 1% of the song, right? Then the rest of it is like excellent. So, and I mean, it is a great song, rightfully so. I mean, that's why it became a hit. It didn't become a hit because it had, more keyboards and glossier production. Right. I mean, I'm sure that was part of it, but I mean, it's just, the bones of the song are, when it comes down to it, it's just a great song. And well performed on this album. So
and I don't know if it was Don Airey who played the 87. I know he's on the 87 album, but I don't know if he played the actual keyboards on that song, or if it was a different, because I know there's a couple guys credited with keyboards on the 87 album, but interesting. Just seeing those ties that always are present. So yeah, I don't know. I kind of struggle with this one. I love it. And for some reason my sheet just completely reloaded. So let me scroll to the end here, find where I left off. I will give it a 4 as well. I really like it. It's hard to tell like what, you're missing things from that original, you're missing things from the 87 version in the original, and like your brain's like kind of picks up on like, oh, there's something missing here, or there's something a little different. So it's really hard to rate it in a vacuum. It's just impossible. But I think I've always loved this version of it more, and the 87 one I was just so sick and tired of at the time that I just never wanted to hear it again for the rest of my life. But over the years, when it's much easier to avoid these days, it still comes up everywhere. But, I think I've grown to appreciate that version a lot more. But yeah, I think it's a great song. It's super well written, and obviously it wouldn't have gotten the attention it ended up getting. And I'm sure it's given Marsden a healthy paycheck for the last nearly 35 years or whatever, since 40 years since this version, but I'm sure the bulk of his paychecks are coming from the 87 version. And I'm sure he does not have any grudges about Coverdale including that on that album. That's pretty great stuff. All right, I think that about covers it for that song. Leads us to our next track on the second side here. This is Love and Affection. This right away reminds me of a song, and I can't think of what it is off the top of my head. Cheeky little chord they and again, here we got like a standard blues percussion, but again, a little sneaky, not really hitting you over the head with it.
Love those guitar fills.
Yeah.
Put your arms around me like a circle around the sun. You stole from You Keep On Moving right there.
That's right.
Coverdale.
And this is Love and Affection, A-N apostrophe. We got 4 songs on this album that have the word and in the title that they do A-N apostrophe. Yeah.
We're going to say and, but we're going to say it really casual like.
And Love and Affection.
It's like
But
Saints and Sinners.
Saints and Sinners uses the ampersand on the album cover though. Not Saints and Sinners, like ready and willing and come and get it.
Saint ampersand Sinners.
Saint Ampersand, a Catholic hero. Our Lady of Saint Ampersand. Nice Lord solo hit. This is written by Coverdale and Moody.
Just ask your mama, baby.
Why not? So this song reminds me of this a classic rock song. It's an instrumental. Rich, you might want to start recording now for a new ringtone, but it starts just like that, like doon 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 doon
Yep.
doon, and then it and every time it like speeds up a little bit, and I'm just drawing a blank on what that song is. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, and I'm drawing a blank too, but I can hear it in my head, so I know which one it is.
So we'll probably think like normal. We think about it at like 2 a.m. We think about what it is, and you're probably yelling at us right now what it is, but we can't hear you because you're not on the call today. But let us know what we already know, and comment on Twitter or whatever about how dumb we are. Okay, Love and Affection. What do you think about this one?
So yeah, this one I think we're getting a little bit into filler territory, so 2.5 for this one. Middle of the road. You know, it's got a couple of cool chord changes in it. I like the guitar fills, but overall as a song, I think it's just a little, I'd skip it probably.
I would agree with that. 2.5 for me as well. It's it's too bad John Lord gets he gets solos on this and the next 2 songs. It's a great John Lord solo, but yeah,
Yeah, see, I mean, that just shows how
like a
like
throwaway.
Yeah, exactly. It seems like a throwaway song that I even forgot that John Lord did a solo. So it's like,
You already forgot.
oh well.
Well, listen up, because the next track is also written by Coverdale Moody, and John Lord also gets a solo, so don't miss it this time. And it's Rock and Roll Angels. And this is the one that Marsden said Paice just struggled with for some reason, couldn't get out of his own head, and just had to basically send everybody out of the studio and do it alone.
Huh.
And he said it was very weird because it was very unlike Paice, who would just nail everything first take.
I'm gonna tell you what it's all about. Bright scream and I shout for you. I've been and traveled all around the world, teasing lots of pretty girls like you. Ooh, I feel my heart beating heavy, banging like a big bass drum. I know you blue jean queens know exactly where I'm coming from.
Blue Jean Queens.
Rock and roll, rock and roll, rock and roll angels. Rock and roll,
Definitely a catchy chorus.
Yep. Another one you could almost see on the 87, at least like the chorus of it.
I can't hide what I feel inside. Though I've tried and I've tried, I can't fake it. I get in trouble everywhere I go, 'cause I can't say no. I gotta shake it. Ooh, I feel my heart beating heavy, banging like a big bass drum. I know you blue jeans
Like the rollicking piano is always nice.
I love that word. We never use that word for anywhere else in regular life. Rollicking.
It has to be used before the word piano, or else.
I had a rollicking good time.
Nice piano solo.
All right.
Did you catch that? Did you catch John Lord's solo there, John?
Blink and you miss it.
Perfect opportunity to point the mic at the crowd.
Yep.
Weird to think that Paice would have any trouble with this. It's so straightforward.
Yeah, I know, right?
You wouldn't know by the final product. All right. That's Rock and Roll Angels. John, what do you think?
So, whoops. Oh, fumbling with the spreadsheet.
Oh, here he goes. He's early for that.
Yeah, I know. Well, I just changed my other rating to a 2.53.
Yeah, I saw that. That's very precise.
Oh, wait a minute. Now I'm screwing it all up. There we go.
Throw
All
our
right,
whole averages system off. There we go.
All right, so I'll give this one a 3. I would say based so like I give it like, you know, another half a point just based solely on like I love the chorus.
Mhm.
I mean, it does get repetitive. It is kind of like, you know, filler territory. Again, I think unfortunately John Lord solo kind of unremarkable. Hmm. I mean, I wish he did more. But I mean, the chorus is catchy. I always liked it. So for me, that's really the only redeeming thing about the song. You know, that would make me want to like, you know, not skip it. I think.
Yeah, I will agree and also give it a 3. I thought it was 4 minutes long. Could have pretty easily been 3 minutes long. There's a lot of repetition on the chorus, which I know you
Yeah.
liked. The verse sounded just like a Flight of the Conchord song, which was really distracting to me. But that's no fault of of anyone's mine.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's a good, solid song. A little bit filler, but you know, again, I think like we've seen with so many of these 10-song albums could very easily be 8-song albums, and you know, I think the last 2 would be 2 that would, you know, could probably have easily been left off. They're not that there's anything wrong with them. They're not bad songs. They're just a little average, and you know,
Right.
especially when you look at the first 4 tracks on first 3 or 4 tracks on the album that were so strong, you know, it just kind of
Yeah.
fizzles out a little bit, but again, solid tracks.
Hmm.
Leads us to the second to last track on the album, which is Dancing Girls.
All right, we're back to the dirty ass riff. I love it. Or rhythm rather. I think the title of the song is a little on the nose for Coverdale.
Yes. It sounds like Lord's doing a little clavichord there.
Yes.
Now this is like Spinal Tap territory, I think.
Oh boy.
A little flange on the vocal there.
Oh. Oh my God, what is he doing? It's so good though.
Nice
Yeah, bring him on.
bass line going in. Here comes John Lord for a 3rd solo in a row.
Thank God.
Nice. Very reminded me of late Mark II.
Yeah, very
era.
yeah. Very John Lord.
Proper Hammond solo. Could have been twice as long. I would have sacrificed 1 round of Rock and Roll Angels chorus for a little more Lord on that, but sounds like a king sitting up. Bring on the dancing girls! Entertain me!
Like if there was a video for this, Coverdale would be like sitting on a throne, like with a scepter and like, you know.
Yeah, and he really leaned into it in later years too, whereas like it was done with a little more seriousness back then, although he's always been like a funny guy. But like nowadays, yeah, he would do that. He would be wearing like the classic purple crown with the white felt bits with the little black specks in it, and just like holding a scepter. You're exactly right.
Oy.
All right, John, bring on the dancing rating. What are you going to rate this one? Entertain me.
Bring on the dancing rating. That sounded like something I'd come up with. Anyways, I'm like,
Man,
I'm
this is
struggling
really-
with some of these because they were
John's
like,
having a hard time today, guys.
you know why? Because there were
It's
some, because these last few songs, there were like good elements in them, but there were also like crappy elements in them.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna have to give it a 3.5 because it's like the verse is great and the music is great. And I mean, the chorus, the chorus is ridiculous, but it's like, I don't know. It's so funny that you like, I don't hate it or think it's boring. I'm just, we're just kind of like laughing at it or with it. I don't know. And I mean, yeah, I think for the serious fact that, the music is great and it has some good elements. And then for the other fact that it just entertains us, whether it's kitschy or not, I think it deserves, that rating. Little higher than average. Because it is something that I like to hear for the
Yeah, that part is
Good
really
shit.
cool. I think we're almost lockstep on this whole album. I'm also going to give it a 3.5. I think it would easily be, if you took John Lord out of the mix, this would easily be a 2.5 song for me. But his clavichord on the verse, the greatness of the verse, that awesome Hammond solo, although a little too short to me. But yeah, the chorus is a little too cheesy for me.
A little hokey.
Not only the melody of it, and obviously more importantly what he's saying is
right.
It's just kind of silly.
Bring on the dancing girls.
Bring them on. Bring them to me for my amusement. But it's very much in keeping with
bring them to me
whole thing. It's not like totally out of left field in that regard. But okay, that leaves us with just one more track. And that is the final track, but you could also call it the titular track, which is Saints and Sinners.
Love this riff
there. I love it.
Yeah, I love that.
He goes from talking about dancing girls to talking about Judgment Day.
Yeah, the themes on this album are all over the place. I feel like there's some voice box that's going to be coming up here.
Sounds like it does. I don't remember. Marsden. Possible.
Yeah, if I'm not wrong, I feel like that there was some voice box in the solo.
It'd be a classic Whitesnake way to end an album.
Well, I can hear the rhythm guitar kind of has that tone to it a little bit.
Yeah. Sounds very like the gypsy guitar tone that they're using. Well, not talkbox, but heavily affected.
Saints and sinners, priests and thieves. Get ready for Judgment Day and the final curtain call. Don't lie when you testify. The good Lord knows it all. Saints and sinners, priests and thieves. Saints and sinners, priests and thieves. Woo! For what we are about to receive, may the Lord make us truly thankful. Saints and sinners.
Very religious ending to the album.
Right?
Saints and sinners. Saints and sinners. Saints and sinners.
The nice organ flowing up in the end is really nice.
Saints and sinners.
You know what I was really expecting was for the organ to stay at the same volume and the whole band to fade out and just have the organ doing those little chord changes and then have that fade out.
Huh.
I don't
That
know
would
if
have been nice.
my brain was telling me that was going to happen, but it didn't happen. You know, it would fit with the whole biblical theme, and all of a sudden you get a church organ. But all right. So what do you think about Saints and Sinners?
You know, my memory of this is like, I remembered liking this song a lot more than I did. Not that I don't like it, but
Mhm.
I don't know. So I'm gonna go ahead and give it a 3. I definitely think it was a good ending to the album. Like, I mean, at least it wasn't like a clunker, but I don't think it was like I don't think it was like the best song, you know. Like, I mean, at least they didn't, end the album on Love and Affection or something like that, you know. But there are like, I mean, the main riff was good, and like, you know, I just think that I feel like, you know, the chorus was like really repetitive.
Yeah.
But there were some good elements in there. Like, I really do think that for the rhythm, I think that he was just kind of like really subtly working the voice box, because you could hear it. Like, even though he didn't do like wow, 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 you know, solo,
Yeah.
like most people think that, like, you know, you have to kind of like Peter Frampton it, you know, and only use it as a lead. But I mean, and they'd used it before, like, so I
Yeah.
mean, I feel like, you know, one of the guitar players was working that in the background, which I mean, I think is a really cool effect. But I think it was like the song was a little bit repetitive. So, but still, I think a decent ending to the album. You know, I won't say like, you know, maybe strong. I would say strong.
Yeah, I would give it a 3.5. I really liked it. I thought it was a good, 3.5 for different reasons than Dancing Girls. But very, a good, strong closing to the album. And, overall, based on all the reviews that we'll get to in a bit, is definitely not, I don't know. I think they're overplaying how patched together this album is. I can see it. I can see what they're talking about. But at the end of the day, I don't think I don't think it affects too much. All right. So while John busts out the spreadsheet, I will do something else, which is, of course, to thank our foundation level patrons. Coming in at the $3.33 halfway to evil tier, we have Raf Calf. At the $3 Nobody's Perfect tier, we have Peter Gardot, Ian DeRosier, Mark Roback, Duncan Leask, Stuart McCord, Flight of the Rat Bat Blue Light, Ivan Fieldboo.
It's a great life if you know weekend. It's a
Runar Simonson.
It's a great life if you know weekend. It's a
And JJ Stenard. Coming in at the saintly leaky mausoleum tier, we have Leaky Mausoleum, botched that. At the $1 made up name tier, we also have Stephen Somerville, the Concerto 1999 fanatic, Spike the Rock Cat, Hank the Tank, Private Eyes, Ashen Lionel, Spike's Mom, Blackmore Tights, and John Maselli.
Oh, this is called aerobic house cleaning. You stay lean while you clean.
All right. Thank you so much to all of those wonderful patrons who support our show. And now it's the time you've all been waiting for.
Bill John's busting out the spreadsheet, and he's fumbling with the tabs. Oops, he sorted it the wrong way. Now he can't tell what is bad.
All right, John, where do the numbers take us here with this latest in the Whitesnake series?
Whitesnake, Saints and Sinners, 7.1 combined rating. Not much of a variance. You liked it a little bit more than I did, which, isn't, I think we liked it about the same. But yes, in the overall albums, it's like say the bottom third of our ratings. Which, I mean, some great songs, but overall, not the strongest album, I guess you could say. Between Ian Gillan, Cher Kazoo, and Bobby Harrison, Funkist, which is an album I haven't thought about in a while.
There you go.
So, yeah, and doesn't seem to be any other Whitesnake albums in that area. None to be seen.
No, it's Whitesnake's.
They're all too high right now, I think. Higher up.
So is this our lowest rated Whitesnake album?
It possibly. Let me
Yeah, I think the next one is Trouble.
Let me take a look.
But it's way up there.
Let me take a look.
Which is funny.
You quit fumbling with that spreadsheet. I'll fumble with the spreadsheet. Let me see. So we have let's see, Ready and Willing. Actually, oh, wait a minute, that was my rating. Ready and Willing was the highest, looks like. Followed by Love Hunter, Come and Get It, Trouble. Yep, Saints and Sinners so far our lowest rated Whitesnake album.
I mean, yeah, we say that, but the range is still pretty close. It's not like.
Oh yeah, I mean, we're not, but I mean, I would say like, it's like one whole point away from our highest rated album.
7.1 versus 8.1, basically.
Right.
Which is pretty close.
Mm-hmm. But that being said, I would say that's pretty. I'd say it's pretty accurate. I mean, the song is the albums definitely have some great songs and great moments on it, but as an overall collection, obviously not as strong as some of the other ones that we've listened to.
Right. Okay, did I start my recording? I don't think I started recording the video, did I?
Says recording up there.
It does? Oh, okay, never mind. Does that say recording? It says you're recording video on your end?
Yeah, I mean, on the upper left side of the Zoom there, yeah.
Yeah, all right then. Forget what I'm saying. Let me do that. Oh yeah, it does say that. My screen's wigging out. All right. Well, so yeah, that's the album. So the album peaked at number 9 on the UK album charts. It's said that Coverdale released this album as is based on time constraints and contractual obligations, meaning that there would have been more tinkering or whatever that needed to be done. But of course, Coverdale's still tinkering with these albums 40 years later. So
yeah,
he's always going to be more tinkering to do. But yeah, as we said, like it might be the lowest rating we've given to a Whitesnake album yet, but it's a pretty narrow margin from top to bottom. And I don't know, I still have a fond memory of this album, and
me too.
Probably going to listen to it again today or later tomorrow.
Mm.
Coverdale said in an interview in Kerrang, and big thanks again to Jorg for sending stuff over. Also, big big shout out to Jeff Bryce for sending over stuff from his archives as well. Another amazing archivist who sends us lots of great stuff. And this in Kerrang that interview that Jeff sent. Coverdale says, if I didn't think this album was up to standards, I'd have burnt the masters, though I'd probably have ended up floating in a river in Hull. It's a fine testament to the power of snakes, but the next one will be even more powerful, that's for sure. So we'll be the judge of that. But yeah, obviously Slide It In is a hugely
Yes.
acclaimed album, so it might be a little bit more coherent than this one, as this one was a little bit patched together, although it doesn't sound as much patched together as you'd expect.
Right.
Mickey Moody describes the album songs. He says the songs went from sublime, Here I Go Again and Crying in the Rain, to ridiculous, Bloody Luxury and Dancing Girls. With a bunch of well-performed, albeit unremarkable rockers hovering about in the middle, which I don't know, that's pretty spot on, I think.
Yeah.
So if you don't want to listen to this whole episode, just listen to that one quote by Mickey Moody, who pretty much sums it up. I don't know. I mean, there are a little, I don't know if Bloody Luxury is ridiculous. Dancing Girls is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But in a good, I mean, what do you expect from Whitesnake? I mean,
Dance for your daddy all night.
Yes, it's a little much. And then, the unremarkable rockers. I mean, unremarkable might be a little harsh, but yeah, a little bit more kind of average filler songs in the middle. But
Yeah,
an average filler song by Whitesnake performed by this lineup of Whitesnake is going to be better than 90% of the stuff that was probably being released at that time. So they ended up going on a tour with this, but it was short-lived as they had to cancel it due to Ian Paice coming down with the mumps.
Oh, ooh.
Yeah, that's not fun.
Jeez.
Ever watched that show, Brooklyn Nine-Nine?
No.
A great episode where they get the mumps.
I know that was still a thing.
No, I don't think it is. I don't know.
I mean, even as far back as that,
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's only, the episode's probably only like 4 or 5 years old, but it's like a hilarious episode. So Coverdale says about this, well, there are some good songs, and there are always good songs on my stuff, but I'm a song guy. But it was definitely a jigsaw puzzle of a record. He also said that he was really torn. He didn't really know how to get out of his, he's talking about this contract he's in with John Coletta. Didn't know how to get out of the deal. It was a bad deal, and he wanted to get out of it. And then he said his daughter was about 4 or 5. She started to get really, really sick with bacterial meningitis, and got really, really sick. And he was with her, and she had, he said, thankfully she had a full recovery. And he said he kind of just put some stuff into perspective, and he said that going through that experience with his daughter and being so scared, he said gave him the balls to turn around and say, this means nothing to me, I want out. And that's how he got out of the band, and what he said was a really bad record deal, and which seems to be echoed by the guys in the band saying, like, okay, you're telling us we're broke and we're in debt, but we just keep releasing gold records. Like, how is this possible? Totally legit. I'm sure the management company was doing fine. I'm sure John Coletta was not selling some of his cars or anything. So I think it's a legitimate concern. And then by David Coverdale taking over the business end of things, obviously that led to a lot more shakeups with the band lineup, but obviously was probably more beneficial monetarily to him and the band. And John Lord admitted that he didn't think Ian Paice was very happy in the band at the time, and that's why this is his last album with the band. Okay, so on to reviews. Got a lot of little quick reviews here. So Simon Robinson says, today the album remains one of their weakest, although it does hint at the transition from the traditional Whitesnake style towards the harder musical approach, which was slowly emerging, especially on tracks like Victim of Love. Overall, the sound is poor and not particularly well mixed, with the keyboards lost and the bass relegated to some far distant place. That I don't really get, because I feel like the bass was pretty up front, and I'm listening to it in headphones, I'm listening to that mix, and it sounds pretty good. John Lord said, it's not my job to sit here and make excuses, but the backing tracks were made under quite difficult circumstances in terms of the band itself and the producer. We went through about 19 different studios. It had to be released, though. Otherwise, we would have been sued from here to Christmas. So here are some reviews, some contemporary reviews from Kerrang at the time. This is reviewing, I think, the Here I Go Again Bloody Luxury double A side. Says, and so Coverdale returns after a lengthy break from the scene. Here I Go Again is basically a ballad, and it's with the raunchy Bloody Luxury that the Whitesnake leader hits the target. The chorus of the latter is very reminiscent of the Stones' Respectable, but who's actually playing on it, I can't say. And that might have been due to some of the turmoil with the band lineup at the time. Here's an article from Sounds. It says, Sinner Takes All, Whitesnake, Saints and Sinners, 4 stars. Goes on to say, in the face of personal troubles, Whitesnake have come up with a damned fine album. Saints and Sinners is their 6th album with this lineup, i.e. not the present one, although it includes backing vocals from Mel Galley. And they just seem to be keep on doing what they've always done, only with more polish each time. So they're clearly not affected by the supposed production issues. Youngblood is the curtain opener and largely sets the scene and the mood for the rest of the album. Bloody Luxury is a Coverdale composition. It's a warm-hearted bop. Victim of Love is the first self-pity number. I like that one. Side 1 closes with the atmospheric Crying in the Rain. What does he say? I want to see what he says about Dancing Girls. Okay. Rock and Roll Angels and Dancing Girls speak for themselves. They're both celebrations of the night and all that happens therein. Rock and Roll Angels has some great rambling barroom piano from Lord, and Dancing Girls is powerful, along by Ian Pace's drums and the ever-present but not overly prominent rumble of Neil Murray's bass. Doesn't mention the lyrics. I was expecting them to take a dig.
Yeah.
So there it is, a thoroughly enjoyable album for almost any occasion and any volume. It's gratifying to think that after a decade of rock and roll of one sort or another, this band are still in touch. Jay Williams. Yeah, not bad. Usually they take a lot more shots. This one's from Sounds. It's about the Here I Go Again single. You said it, mate. Slow Freebird style verses meet priestish bouncy choruses with earth-shattering predictability. And where do they get those lyrics from? He doesn't know where he's going, but he knows where he's been, and he's searching for an answer, and he's in again on his own and going down the only road he's ever known. Oh my God, how can anyone be so dull? The other side's called Bloody Luxury, Bloody Liberty, more like. So clearly they're not fans of that. But
Okay.
I think Coverdale and Company will laugh all the way to the bank with that assessment on that single, particularly in years to come. Robin Smith writes in Record Mirror, excellent timing, Coverdale old boy. While most metaldom hibernates, Whitesnake have delivered an absolute little corker. The long break hasn't diminished Coverdale's vocal cords, and he's really been able to settle down with the new lineup, including Rent-A-Drummer Cozy Powell, kind of making a dig at the fact that Cozy Powell was in like 12 bands in 8 years or whatever. Some people may have wanted more innovation on this album, but Coverdale has gambled on producing a record with a cutting stomp a minute edge. Saints and Sinners shouldn't fall far short of anybody's expectations. Finishes up with Victim of Love and Crying in the Rain and Love and Affection find Coverdale all tight trousers and passion. While I can think of no fresh superlatives to describe Here I Go Again, other than saying it's pure magic, a fine package to be sure. So Robin is a little more in touch with the rest of the world on the feelings on Here I Go Again. There's a little ad about the album. New album, new cassette, Saints and Sinners. And then it lists the tour dates that are coming up. This is a lengthy review here, but let's skip to the end. This is from Kerrang. Last bit. This is by Chaz DeWally. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. We are told that this album was very much a salvage job, that its making was fraught with illness and violent argument. It certainly shows the emotional weight, which normally stacks itself up to sound in Whitesnake record, seems straight and drawn thin. And no matter how much effort David Coverdale put into it, and he obviously sweated blood, he can't disguise the fact that this is not his finest album. But give him full marks for trying, and cross your fingers that his new lineup will get it all sorted out next time. So they're picking up on a little more of the things that have been mentioned by other journalists. This one is from Smash Hits by Fred Deller. Despite recent comings and goings in the personnel department, Whitesnake remained much the same, a blues band in heavy metal clothing. The songs are mainly rehashes of familiar favorites, but Coverdale and his mates have a way of freshening up even the most pensionable material. Give or take a sexist line or two, Whitesnake leaves no cause or real complaint. 5 out of 10. So middle of the road there from Fred. This one is by Pete Hayes in Music World. Lists all the songs. So David Coverdale is, after all, not going to split from Whitesnake, the name Whitesnake, that is. The band is now David Coverdale, Cozy Powell, it goes through all the lineup. With this band, they have put together some powerful stuff. Cozy Powell drives hard, and only heavyweights could stay in the ring with him. So I think they're mistakenly thinking that Cozy plays on this album. Whitesnake have gone back to find the gears to take them forward. The record has been out a month now, and I am not sure of my opinion of it. If they stay together, this lineup could be the answer to the alchemist's dream that heavy metal could turn out to be pure gold. But at this moment, their own character has not come out of individual sound. I keep thinking that that sounds like Cream, and that sounds like Slade, praise indeed. Oh, and that sounds a bit like Whitesnake. So the ingredients must be right, if that's how you like your pudding. It gets more forceful with familiarity, and although it did not shake me to my boots the first time I heard it, the more I play it, the more I like it. I'm sorry, the more I play it, the more I play it. So yeah, some understandable confusion about what the lineup of the band actually is, because they even put out a record, a press release about the lineup and all that to go out along with this album, even though that's not who's playing on it, which seems to be a kind of consistent thing with Whitesnake as time goes on. By the time the album comes out, it's a new lineup. Saints and Sinners, this is from Sydney Morning Herald, is a heavy dose of headbanging heavy metal, latent sexual sadism, mundane, noisy, crush your fists on a nearby nose and collapse in a gutter music. Somehow, heavy metal has never been as good as Deep Purple and AC/DC. Whitesnake, Whitesnake, like so many heavy metal bands, sounds like lousy imitations. This LP is giving me a headache and appears more brain than extremely dangerous drugs. I know which brain damage I prefer, and it's not Whitesnake, Saints and Sinners. So this person saying they'd rather get wasted than listen to this album.
Who is this guy? This is not headbanging heavy metal, and Deep Purple is not heavy metal. AC/DC isn't heavy metal.
You know, and there's a lot of, you see that term getting thrown out, and I think, I don't know if they were just, Jerry Bloom talks about this a lot, like, because people call Deep Purple heavy metal and he gets so mad. He's like, Deep Purple is not heavy metal. They were never heavy metal. While they may have inspired a lot of heavy metal bands and instrumentalists in heavy metal bands, they're not heavy metal. And I would say even more so with Whitesnake. If you had to say one was heavy metal, it would be Deep Purple versus Whitesnake. Whitesnake never sounded heavy metal, but you know, late in the early 80s, I feel like the def heavy metal was maybe not as formed. I mean, you didn't have, I mean, apart from like maybe Judas Priest and Iron Maiden, you didn't really have any proper heavy metal that we would assume, unless maybe you call them Black Sabbath, but I don't know. It's kind of like when they used to call Deep Purple prog back in the day, where it's like the proggiest stuff they've done has been in like the last 20 years since Airey joined the band. But prior to that, they called them prog in the 60s. And to me, that's not what prog sounds like. But I think that these definitions change over the years.
Yeah, probably.
And then later on, of course, they'll get lumped into hair metal, which is, hair metal was never really metal anyway. It was just, it might have had the production sounds of metal, but it was always rock, just straight rock, basically.
Yeah.
And I don't think Whitesnake ever did anything that was metal that I would consider metal.
I mean, maybe the 87 album and, you know, Slip of the Tongue.
Slip of the Tongue, yeah.
You know, those were more metal sounding, but even then it was, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's fair. And then the last review from The Age. Whoa. It seems somewhat ironic that keyboardsman John Lord, spelled wrong, co-founder with guitarist Ritchie Blackmore, one of the early heavy metal groups, Deep Purple, should now be serving under David Coverdale, the group's last lead singer, before it curled up and died in 1976. Wow, harsh.
Wow.
But that's how things are with the new lineup of Whitesnake, an oft reshaped band since it was first formed in the difficult days for heavy rock bands of the late 70s. Be that as it may, the new Whitesnake lineup, which includes ex-Ritchie Blackmore rainbow drummer Cozy Powell, has broken into the charts with a Coverdale song appropriately called Here I Go Again, a 5-minute medium-tempo rocker in classic vein, which owes much of its appeal to Lord's keyboard work. Unfortunately, that is easily the highlight of the album, Saints and Sinners. The rest, with the exception of the up-tempo Love and Affection, again with some fine keyboard work from Lord, and possibly the commercial Dancing Girls, sounds like a case of heavy metal fatigue. Again, I don't know about calling that heavy metal, but there you have it. So, and then some of the confusion finally rests, and you know, this press release goes out kind of, you know, it's a standard press release. It lists right at the top of the press release David Coverdale, Cozy Powell, Mickey Moody, Mel Galley, Colin Bomber Hodgkinson, and John Lord. So clearly, if they're sending this with a review copy to a magazine, they're going to look at it and say, and since there's nothing written on the album that indicates who played what, they're going to assume that these are the people that are on the album, like any normal person would. So,
right,
you know, but it's also funny. It's like, oh yeah, you can tell Cozy Powell's drums. It's like, well, no, you can't. And then, this goes on to just, be obviously a bunch of marketing. And then at the end, you get this cool picture of the band of the new lineup.
Look at John Lord. He's like,
John Lord's cheesing. It looks like a fifth grader, a kindergarten picture.
I was gonna say it looks like a kindergarten picture, like say cheese, and he's like cheese.
Everybody looks. Mel Galley looks thrilled. Colin Hodgkinson looks like he's at the top of the world.
They're like,
Coverdale's
we're so
furious.
happy to be in Whitesnake. Except
Coverdale's
Cozy.
like,
Cozy's like, what am I doing here?
Cozy's like, wait, which band am I in again? He did move to a lot of bands, but to call him a rent-a-drummer, I think, is a little
Insulting.
insulting to the man's actual skill. I mean, the guy is a legend, and even then, I think he was, super highly regarded, amazing drummer. To say he's a rent, I mean, yes, he did bounce around a lot, but could have been done in a more gentle way, I suppose. But there you have it. That's Saints and Sinners, the last album by the classic Whitesnake lineup, and then we'll in an undetermined amount of time we will pick up where we left off with Slide It In. Then of course we're gonna have to figure out how we do Slide It In, because there's two versions and we have to figure out how we're gonna might call for something new or different. We might just have to do them back to back. I don't know. We'll have to see what's the best way.
Ooh, that's gonna be a tricky one, because I love both versions.
Yeah, they're both quite good, so we'll have to see what happens. But anyway, I think that's all I got. Anything else, John, before we close up?
That's it. Calling it quits.
All right. Well, it's been great chatting with you on another daytime recording, and we'll talk to you next week.
Okay. See you then.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Deep Purple Podcast. If you like what you hear and would like more episodes in the future, please donate on Patreon to support the show. You can also leave us a review in Apple Podcasts to help new people discover the show. You can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook for show updates. See deeppurplepodcast.com for more details. Thank you for listening.